Today it is caramel lovers only, please. Well, if you know me, you know that my second love, after chocolate of course, is caramel. Golden, sticky, gooey caramel dripping from every bite. There's really nothing easier than making a sheet cake with a bit of filling and some icing. There's no fussy layers to stack, and it's even easier to serve. This recipe for caramel sponge cake is so fantastic, but it does require just a tad more work since we do have to make the caramel sauce first. And by combining granulated sugar, a little bit of vinegar, and some water together in a heavy bottom sauce pot, cooking it over high heat, we are well on our way. But making caramel, you really have to be careful because it can go from light amber to burnt sugar in seconds and you will be smoking out your kitchen. Not that I know anything about that. So once it starts to get that light amber color, just really watch it carefully. And you'll have to be even more careful when pouring in the plant milk because as you see, it's going to bubble up fiercely and sputter away. So please no pets or kids in the kitchen when you're making caramel. Just let it settle down a bit and then you can add in the salt, the vegan butter, and the vanilla extract. Now just set that aside to cool down. It is super hot right now, so just leave it alone and we can get to making the sponge cake. And this is a really simple one bowl mix where you're basically just adding the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients, including some of that reserved and cooled caramel sauce. Into a greased and parchment lined 9-inch by 13-inch cake pan is going to be the snack cake style, but if you prefer round layers, you can transform this recipe into, oh, I don't know, something like Billionaire's banana pudding cake perhaps. I mean, this recipe bakes into cupcakes and loaves and buns, like whatever you like the most, this recipe fits. But like I said, the snack cake sheet cake style is just so easy to make. But before we do, I have to get some of that remaining cooled caramel sauce into my buttercream recipe. Any recipe that you like the most for buttercream will work here, and I have about 5 or 6 different recipes for buttercream on my website, so be sure to click through to grab all the best vegan recipes at Gretchen'sVeganBakery.com. Now, I debated whether I wanted to pour the caramel layer right onto the cake, but instead I added a very thin layer of buttercream first. But in retrospect, I think next time I would just pour it straight onto the cake. Not only will this allow it to soak into the cake layers slightly, but it's also going to cut down on the amount of buttercream. I thought it was a bit heavy on the buttercream on this one, so next time I would just do it that way. Especially because I did the rosettes instead of just like thin icing it on top. It was a bit heavy on the buttercream, I'll admit. But whichever way you decide to do it, I know you're going to love this cake. There is just caramel dripping from each bite. The sponge cake is so moist and fluffy. I just love this recipe so much, and I really hope you're going to want to make it. So grab the recipe, and I'll meet you back here next week for another new recipe coming at you straight out of Gretchen's Vegan Bakery. Until then, happy vegan baking. Bye for now.